Hi, I'm Micah with Tips from the Test Kitchen, and this year I've been really in the holiday spirit. I'm gonna show you how to make a pastry Christmas wreath, which is traditionally served on Christmas morning, but you can really have it around anytime in the holidays. It's really rich because it's flavored with almonds, and I'm gonna use some cherries, but it's also just really visually eye-catching with the different layers in the braid showing through, and I'm gonna show you some techniques to do it really beautifully and pretty simply. First things first, we need to make the dough for our pastry, which is really like a simple cinnamon roll dough. We're going to add 1 1/3 cups of warm milk, along with 4 1/2 teaspoons of instant yeast. This is the equivalent of 2 packages. 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, and I'm just gonna whisk these things together. Once the yeast is dissolved, you just wanna set this aside for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's really foamy and bubbly, and then we'll add our flour. Now that my yeast sponge is nice and foamy, I can add the rest of my ingredients to the dough. So I have 3 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. So I'm going to add these to the yeast. And I'm also going to add 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. I'm now gonna stir these ingredients together until a shaggy dough forms. It's going to be a sticky dough, and that's okay. I'm gonna transfer it to my work table, and I'm going to knead it for about 3 minutes until it's smooth and it doesn't stick to the surface as much. Now that the dough is no longer sticking to the surface, that means it's ready to rest. I'm gonna put my dough inside a clean, greased bowl and set it aside covered until it's doubled in size, which will take about an hour. While my dough is rising, I'm gonna go ahead and make the filling for the pastry. So in a stand mixer, I'm gonna combine 10 ounces of almond paste, which you can find in the baking aisle of your local grocery store. And I've just crumbled it up into kind of manageable pieces. 4 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And we're gonna start just creaming these together until they're smooth. Now that it's smooth, I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour and the zest of 1 lemon. All right, my filling here is almost ready. I'm just gonna transfer it to a bowl. The last ingredient in the filling is a dried fruit of some kind. I prefer dried cherries, but regardless of what fruit you use, you should soak the dried fruit first, either in some sort of liqueur mixed with water, maybe lemon juice mixed with water. It rehydrates the fruit and it makes it extra toothsome as you bite into the pastry, but it also is a great chance to imbue the fruit with some kind of flavor. So I used an orange liqueur mixed with a little bit of water to rehydrate my cherries, and I'm mixing in about 3/4 cup. It's quite a lot of dried cherries. I let my dried cherries soak in this mixture of orange liqueur and water for about an hour. I just drained them, and so now I can add them to my almond filling, and I can just mix with my hand. You can use a spoon, a spatula, whatever you'd like, and your filling is all ready to go. My dough is done rising, and you can see that it's doubled in size. It's gotten pretty big. So I'm just gonna use my hand to deflate some of the gas out of the dough, and I'm going to lightly flour my work surface and transfer my dough to my work surface. The trick to get the beautiful lines in your Christmas ring braid is to roll the dough out into a large, long rectangle and spread the almond filling evenly before we roll up the dough and then cut it in half. That rolling up and cutting it in half exposes all of the different layers of dough and filling, and it makes for a really beautiful braid. I'm going to generously flour the rest of my surface and the surface of the dough and roll it out to about 3 feet long and about 9 inches wide. Once my dough is rolled out into a rectangle, I'm going to use an offset spatula in my fingers to kind of sprinkle and spread the filling evenly across the surface of the rectangle. Once the filling is spread evenly across the dough, you're gonna start from one of the long sides, and you're simply going to start rolling up the dough. Once you have your roll finished, dust it again with flour and get a little more on your work surface. And then simply take a chef's knife and start at one of the ends of the dough and simply cut the roll in half. By doing this, you have 2 layered strips of dough. And now we get to braid, which is really simply just a matter of wrapping the dough and lifting one edge over the other, trying to keep this exposed part facing up. And once you've finished braiding, you simply move your wreath around so it makes a perfect, seamless circle. Now that we've braided our wreath and it's beautiful, we want it to go through its second rise before we bake it. So I'm going to cover it in some plastic wrap, and I'm gonna set it on the counter to rise 45 minutes to an hour. I just want it to be really puffy and swollen before I throw it into the oven. Once you throw it into the oven, it bakes in about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll glaze it, and it will be one of the more beautiful edible decorations around your house this holiday. As you can see, the dough has gotten much larger. I'm now simply brushing it with some egg wash before popping it in my 350-degree oven. I'm gonna set a timer for 25 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. You want it to be beautifully browned, and when you tap the side, it should sound kind of hollow and firm. Now that my pastry ring is out of the oven, I'm gonna let it cool completely before drizzling it with a simple powdered sugar milk glaze and sprinkling some sliced almonds over top. With that simple method of rolling, cutting, and braiding, you'll have a decorative, delicious holiday dessert that's sure to get you in the spirit.